Welcome back to the Encore Audio YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. My first group that I ever recorded was Underearners Anonymous. A friend of mine, Frank Brigiotti, who's on my channel, he passed away some time ago. He had some kind of cancer, but Frank was a great guy. He wanted to try to change my name from Taper Dave to Digital Dave. I've still got the shirt, the South Bay Roundup shirt, in my closet that he had embroidered Digital Dave. But he asked me if I wouldn't mind recording this group, Underearners Anonymous, and I said, sure, I'll record anything anonymous. So here you go. Enjoy, comment, and don't forget to like and subscribe, whatever you do. Be sure to like and subscribe to my channel. That helps me out a lot. Doesn't cost you a thing. Just click on the like button. You have a good day if you want to. Take care. Be sure to like and subscribe to my channel. That helps me out a lot. Doesn't cost you a thing. Just click on the like button. You have a good day if you want to. Take care.
I really wish that no human being would suffer.
Right.
I genuinely do. I mean, if that were at all possible, and anything I can reasonably and humanely do to contribute to no human being suffering, I will. If someone is intent on under-earning, it's not my job to go about rescuing him. I might eventually, the same way I would with a drinker, I might in some conversation eventually say, yeah, if the guy's telling me about hangovers he has, or, you know, how he yelled at his girlfriend or something. And I might say, yeah, I know what that's like, man. I used to have terrible hangovers myself. And I'd leave an opening for him to say, you mean you don't have them anymore or something? And then I might 12-step him.
I did invite him to this weekend,
but
I'm still paying him like way less than his rate.
It's not your job to run around to everyone who wants to undercharge you, or not charge you what you think is a fair rate that they should be getting. It's not your job to say, gee, you want to wash my windows for $20? No, let me give you $50 for it.
Okay, all right.
My IT guy is an under-earner himself. I let him under-earn, and then I gave him a bonus when the job was finished.
Okay, that's
because
cool.
he did a good job.
Thank you very much.
Just hold off. We're at a choice point. What we could do is we could actually continue this in this format and record it if you want to eat your food here and they can eat their food and we can keep doing it.
I'm fine. Okay. Choice is being offered. Food is there available for anyone who wants it at the moment.
Thank you.
And I'm told that we could continue while people are getting food. If other people want to continue a dialogue or ask questions, I'm happy to sit here and do it. I don't need to eat right now. No, I'm fine. I had a big breakfast and I had a little snack beforehand. So if anyone has any other questions or would like to deal with things, sure.
Jerry, just on the last question, just to clarify, I think we're all a little confused about that what you call an operating fund is also known as a business savings account. Isn't that what you?
A business what?
That would be your business savings account, the operating fund?
Yeah, I don't think in terms of a savings account.
I mean, that's what you...
But sure, yes, you could call it a savings account if you want.
Business
sure.
savings, and then that's how you... I think that's what we're...
There are different names. Different people call it different things. DA always talks in terms of a prudent reserve. Some people call it a contingency fund. For me, since my income is so erratic on a monthly basis, I need, and I think of it as an operating fund. You know, when the months are very thin and not much money is coming in, that operating fund makes up the difference and carries me through. And my operating fund has literally saved my ass for the last 2 years. I had a 4-year period in which money just flowed into my life in great buckets and cascades and waterfalls, and more money than I had ever seen. It was very lavish in abundance. I mean, it didn't make me wealthy, and I'm not going to buy a new car or anything. But it was a whole hell of a lot of money. Since I'm not, fortunately, a compulsive spender, I didn't go out and spend all that money. I just put it all away. I put it in an IRA, I put it in investments, and I put it in a business operating fund. And I knew this project was going to end. I knew that that tsunami of money coming into my life was finite. You know, the project was going to end. And indeed, it did end. And after that, the same amounts were not available. Work was very tough, dried up. So for the most part, for a 2-year period, I've probably had a shortfall for 2 years running in the total amount that came in and the total amount that had to come out. God bless the operating fund. That's what it's there for. So any months in which there was a shortfall, the operating fund just made up for that shortfall. And my expenses are regularly. I have a spending plan. I know more or less what my monthly expenses are. So I can gauge an operating fund. Is an operating fund going to last me 4 months, 6 months? You know, when I started off, that operating fund could have carried me for a total year, a little bit more than a year, maybe 14, 15 months. If I didn't bring in another dime for 14 or 15 months, I could have paid for everything, including my salary. The business could have handled everything for 14 to 15 months. That was the size of the operating fund. You know, in my experience and normal way of things, it was a Mount Everest of an operating fund. It has now been reduced to a K2 or a Mount McKinley of an operating fund. And, you know, it's finite too. Eventually, there will be an end to it if the situation is not altered. And it's turning around now. But I knew this would happen. I knew there would be a number of fat years, very fat, and then I knew there were going to be a couple of lean years after it. And pretty much what I had anticipated. And the operating fund was right there to save my butt.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. Hi. Actually, when I was waiting in line and you were talking about paying a person who's offering an under-earning, what do you call rate, I felt like I got slapped in the head because
I'm sorry.
it really hit home what I'm doing. And I'm working with people who say they can't afford my price, and I know I'm totally undercharging. Yet I see them and I visit them at the suite, at the Marriott on the Marina, and places like that. And when you said if they're going to charge that amount of money, just let them, I felt like a big stupid fool. So I want to see how I could get in my being not to be taken advantage of, or letting because it's not their fault, it's mine. But it's during negotiations when they say, oh, I can't afford it, that's too high, and then I go way down to the point where I'm living way down. You know, so I really need help with that.
You know, that's why we're all here.
Yeah.
Some variation of that applies to all of us, and that's one of the things we're trying to recover from. And, you know, there are a number of ways to go about that. One way that I have practiced, I'm not currently practicing it, but I have for a couple year periods on and off, is that I give away 10% of my time, my professional time. And I just give it away to people who can't afford it. And the rest of my time, I charge for it. And also, I have gone through a process where I have sat down and I have listed, if I had more money, and I picked a specific figure, you know, if I had $100,000 to give away, where would I give it? And what good would I be able to do with that? Well, if I'm undercharging, I'm never going to have that $100,000 to give away. The more money I make, the more money I do have to give away. I don't give away everything that I make, but I just flow money out on a regular basis. And, you know, because a guy or a woman who makes $200,000 a year is suffering in some fashion or another and could use your help and benefit from your help, and then there's someone over here who makes $10,000 a year and is suffering and could use your help. Both of them are suffering, and both of them are entitled to help. And, you know, when my clients pay my rent or pay my rate, they free me because I can now meet my expenses. I can stay in a home, I can keep eating, I can keep relatively healthy, I have enough money to do that. They free me to be able to help them. If they're not freeing me, I'm not going to be able to help them very long, because I'm not going to live in my apartment, I'm going to eat unhealthily, I'm going to be worried about money, I'm going to fall into debt, and then I'm not of much use to anybody.
And that's where I'm at right now. So, I do need to change that.
You and I both. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Jerry.
After we finish this, please. There's a question about the website address, and
Okay.
I'll be happy to do that privately after we finish some Q&A.
I want to clarify what Chuck was saying. You do not have a savings account that is separate from your operating account. Like when we were kids, I just want to make sure you don't have any savings
I don't have a
accounts, right?
savings account in the
Okay.
world. I probably have not had a savings account since I was 12.
Okay, that's what I just wanted. Okay, that was my first question. Okay, you mentioned a spending plan.
Yes.
What are the items that are in your spending plan?
The categories.
Yes.
And I break my spending down into probably somewhere between 25 and 30 categories.
Do you have them in your memory, or can you say what they are?
All 25 or 30? No.
Well, as
but,
many as you can
if you give me
remember.
a couple minutes, I probably could come up with
Well,
all of
we
them.
have
But off the top of my head, there's rent. That's the first thing. I don't own my apartment.
Right.
I rent. So there's rent. And actually, I don't want to overcomplicate this, but I will tell you there's two forms of the rent. The business pays part of the rent because I write at home and I consult at home. So a part of my living space is used for professional purposes only. That's a business expense. The IRS allows it as a business expense on Schedule C, profit or loss from business or profession.
Right.
So some of these things, the business pays part of it, and I personally pay part of it.
Oh, okay.
But let's just talk about category qua category. There's rent, there's Cablevision, there's my internet service provider,
Okay.
there's food,
Okay.
and I break that down into prepared foods. I'm a little careful about how I
restaurant?
do this. I do eating out,
Uh-huh.
and then eating out others if I take someone out to dinner. Then groceries, stuff that I cook at home and use at home, and prepared foods that I bring in. For me, it's helpful to have 3 different divisions of food. It just keeps things clearer for me. Not everyone needs or wants to do that. Then I have household supplies. Comet, dishwashing fluid, paper
Okay.
towels. I mean, very mundane, trivial things, but household supplies. I need to know how much I'm spending on
Right.
that. Clothes. How much am I spending in clothes? Technology help. Software. Electricity. Telephone. Oh yeah, entertainment. Yes,
Entertainment.
that's always of least concern to me because I don't do a whole hell of a lot of it.
And how do
But
you
entertainment?
determine?
Yes.
Okay. And how do you determine how much to spend?
Books, big category for books.
Okay. How do you determine how much to spend on clothes and entertainment and tech and?
I try and determine a sane and reasonable amount.
Well, how do you do that? I mean, we're insane. That's
What?
why we're here. How do you do it sanely?
Okay. Yeah.
Well, he's here. He's a master at DA. I'm asking him.
Okay, I mean, a pressure relief group would be spectacular for that. That's, for people new in DA, it's one of the very first things you do in a pressure relief group. You develop a spending plan with them. If I make $5,000 a month and I want to spend $1,000 a month on clothes, I'm probably not sane
Right.
in determining that. So you said, how do you determine?
Okay,
well,
I
look, if
see.
you got 20% of the money I'm bringing in, I'm spending on clothes, something's wrong here. If I'm spending 75% of it on rent, something's wrong there. That's irrational. My first pressure relief group, these 2 people looked at me and said, $4.20 on personal care is disgusting. Because that's all I had allocated in my spending plan. I mean, what I had spent in the previous 2 months averaged out to $4.20 on
I
personal
see.
care. So, I mean, the reflection in the eyes of other debtors and other under-earners, left to my own devices, I think like an alcoholic, an active alcoholic. Left to my own devices, I think like an active debtor. Look, I'm very good at these things. I'm very capable. I'm confident in myself, But that doesn't mean I stopped going to AA meetings or stopped going to DA meetings or stopped going to UA meetings. I need the company and the reminder from other under-earners. And I need their assistance. Believe it or not, I actually need PRGs now and then. I mean, over the years, I've probably given 350 to 400 pressure relief groups. I've only had probably 25 or so. And that's a character defect in me. And that's not utilizing the program. And it's one of the reasons I personally, yesterday, I was sorry that I flaked out and couldn't stay till 10 p.m. tomorrow night, that I had to leave around 8. I finally faded too much. I was too tired. But one of the reasons I really wanted to participate in the presentations that Greg was doing, and to listen to what Eddie had to say earlier, and to listen to Mike, because I am a compulsive under-earner. And because I'm not an active under-earner, and I'm not an active debtor, and I'm not an active alcoholic, doesn't mean that I'm not an alcoholic or not a debtor. So how do you determine what's reasonable? You do it in the company of other solvent debtors who can talk to you and say, you're depriving yourself here, or you need to put something in your spending plan that allows you to buy fresh flowers for yourself twice a month or 3 times a month. You need to get a massage now and then. Or to tell you you can't spend $600 on cabs every month, which is something I had to tell somebody recently. In fact, it was more than 600, but that was irrational.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
that's how you do it.
Okay, one more quick one.
Quick.
When you said to this other lady that you give away 10% of your time.
I don't always do that. I go through periods when I do that.
Okay.
I mean, it's a practice.
So how do you calculate what is 10% of your time? Like you're awake 18 hours a day, so you give away, I mean, you have sponsees. Is that giving away time, giving sponsees?
There, an action group would probably be, do you keep time records in UA?
Do I keep them?
Yes.
Loosely.
That's where you start, and with an action group in this. Some people work 40 hours a week. Some
Right.
people work 60 hours a week. Some people work 20 hours a week.
Right.
And those figures all may be appropriate for given individuals. If I work 30 hours a week as an average, and I want to give away 10% of my time, I give away 3 hours a week.
And if you're giving them to sponsees, then you're done.
This has nothing to do with sponsees.
Well, that's why I'm asking. Do you make a
That
delineation?
has nothing to do with sponsees, really. It's professional time. We're talking about setting rates and charging.
Okay.
And one way to help maintain my normal rates and not feel bad that I have to lower them for other people is for me to give away 10% of my professional time.
Gotcha. That's
That has
what I
nothing
wanted
to do with my activity in the program.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, thank
Hi.
you so much for your time.
Sure.
Okay, I have a couple questions, and one of them is, okay, I don't know, what do you think is a reasonable amount of time to establish this fund? Because I work for myself, and I have my own business, and like you, I get a lot of money, then I get no money, and so that, let's say I'm at no money right now, or little money.
Right.
So my fear is, okay, I'm listening to you and I'm trying to understand everything, and I think, I can't set up this transfer of money because what if next month or the month
Sure.
right after, I don't have that money in there, and then I start to get a lot of anxiety around this. So I've thought of it before to set it all up, to go, and then I don't do it because I'm so frightened. So how do you get through that, or have you faced that? The fear.
Well, let me see if I understand this correctly.
Okay.
Let's say you have a lot of money in your checking account at the moment, let's say
Yes,
theoretically. Let's say you have $15,000 in it, and your expenses are $3,000 a month, let's say.
Yes.
So you're reluctant to take that overage and put it into an operating fund? Is that what you're saying?
Right, but I'm saying let's assume that we're starting at a low amount right now instead of a high amount.
Well,
You see, because,
let's say we have $5,000 in the
Like,
checking
should I
account.
establish, should I give myself a reason, what's a reasonable amount of time of saying, should I save this for 6 months and then put it in there and set that up?
An operating fund is liquid. I could go to an ATM right now and take money out of my operating fund.
Right.
I mean, it's available to me. It's nothing that's walled off from my use, nothing I'm deprived of.
Okay.
And this is an e-savings account. I do it all online, but one can just have a regular savings account. Most banks will allow you to attach a savings account to a checking account.
Yes.
Some of them will give you, they'll cover overdrafts and everything. Let me say a word about overdrafts. I keep a minimum of $1,000 in my business account, checking account, and in my personal account. That's a bottom line. It never goes below that. I have emails sent to me, and alarms go off if it drops $5 below that. So I give myself my own checking plus, or privileges, because that, when banks offer them, that's debt, of course. If they give me a checking plus or cash reserve, whatever they call their special checking, which means they cover my overdrafts and then charge me $20 or whatever it is. That's just debting if I go into that. So I just made my own by bottom lining my accounts at $1,000, my two checking accounts.
Sorry to interrupt your viewing. Taper Dave here. Just wanted to take a second to ask you to like and subscribe to my channel. Let me know if you like what you're listening. I've got some very good talks here, and this one's a great one. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Tell me what you think.
So if you give me an amount that would be a big amount in a checking account that you would have, and you'd be afraid to move that.
No, it's not that I'm afraid to move it. It's that I'm afraid that it's going to run out, and then all of a sudden it's all set up so that it pays my expenses, but I don't really have enough in there.
That's a whole different question. Don't set up on automatic transactions then.
Oh, so that's what I was thinking you were saying to do, so I said...
No. That's just, I just have everything set up because that's the way I like it, and I have enough money for it.
I see.
If I didn't have enough money, if I were... if I had $12,000 to my name and my expenses were $4,000 or $5,000, I wouldn't have a single automatic transfer of anything. But there'd be an interesting question: why wouldn't I? And I'd say, well, but I'd run out of money. What would happen if it automatically transferred? Well, what would happen? I'd debt.
Right.
And I can't debt no matter what happens. I will not debt. I will not debt. It's unconditional for me. So I might be too afraid to have those automatic transfers. But the people who tell you, I don't want to pay my rent or I don't want to pay my phone bill now because I'm afraid I'll run out of money next month. What they're saying to me is, I'm afraid I'll have to debt next month, so instead of that, I'm too afraid of that, I'll debt today.
Yeah.
So I'll have enough money and I don't have to debt next month. So I just, for all of us, we need to, I need to raise my income. I mean, we're here for that. We are here for those other levels of living a peaceful life, a more harmonious life, following, for most of us, a spiritual path. But by God, that does involve for us, of necessity, for us, for me, as an under-earner, making more money and bringing more money in. For someone to say, now, Underearners Anonymous isn't about the money, it's about other things, this is really like saying Alcoholics Anonymous is not about the alcohol. Well, it sure as hell is.
No, it's about the money.
Right. I mean, so we have to do that. And there have been many times in my life where look, even in solvency, and working to overcome my under-earning, there have been periods. At 7 years, I felt for a long time that what happened to me was I would have 7 fat years, then 7 lean years, and 7 fat years, and 7 lean years. It didn't quite cycle like that, but that's how it felt sometimes. But there were times when money was there, and there were times when money hasn't been. There were times in my solvency and in my recovery, and I mean 12 years into it, I mean 17 years into it sometimes, where I went through, I told you about that 4-year period, which began 6 years ago and ended 2 years ago, but that 4-year period when money just poured into my life. Prior to that had been a 2-year period where I often didn't know how I was going to pay for things more than 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks in advance. I didn't know where the money was going to come from. And I'm getting too old for that kind of stuff. I mean, that wears you down too much. But that's why I have operating funds now. And that's why when the money came in, I didn't go spend the money. I didn't buy myself a co-op, or I didn't take a round-the-world vacation. I mean, I knew what I had to do in order for me to relax in my spirit, in my soul, in my heart, in my life, and to keep things going and be humane, to live at peace with money. That's what I'm after always. I want to live at peace with money.
Me too. And I'm that weekly,
where's it coming? This is how we do it. But don't set up the automatic transactions.
Okay. And then another question is about, okay, I'm in the luxury business. I sell jewelry. I'm a jewelry designer, and like a celebrity type jewelry designer. And I'm like really kind of perplexed with, like, I hear about like, okay, be more of service, do all this, and which is fine. And I sometimes wonder how I can set up my business where I'm thinking they don't really need it. They don't really need this jewelry. So, you know, like, how am I really being of service to them? Like, do you understand my question when I come to
I think so. I think
okay.
so. Not sure, but I think so.
Okay.
Look, one can become obsessed with doing service, too, as much as anything else. I mean, I think many of us, Greg had, I think, mentioned a vast amount of pressure relief groups, he had done, or action groups at one time. And there were times when I was doing 4 and 5 pressure relief groups a week, and it's just too much. I mean, you burn out on it sooner or later. So in here, I learned balance with my money. And I also need to learn balance with my service and with my life in general. You know, here we also talk about those dangerous concepts, but useful concepts, under being and under living. Part of that is, you know, the big book talks about becoming right-sized. The big book of AA. And for some people, that means lifting up the ego, raising themselves or being raised to a level of self-esteem and self-confidence and happier functioning in the world. And for other people, it means taking down that arrogance and that pridefulness. So becoming right-sized applies to doing service also. And you can, you know, if it's not a matter of you giving away 10% of your jewelry, and then there's no law that says any percentage has to be done like this. But if you want to do, there's plenty of opportunity for service in Underearners Anonymous. Do service in Underearners Anonymous. Or take, if you work normally 30 hours a week, give 3 hours to reading to children in a foundling hospital or something. You know, do that. And that'll be
But it's kind of more, like, my question is kind of with my business where, like, okay, if you're a therapist, you're helping people, right?
Right.
So what I'm saying is that, like, how am I helping people by selling them jewelry is what kind of what I'm...
We're going to... Okay, we're going to have to move the line a little bit, but I'll just address this briefly. You don't have to... Look, your jewelry may bring a tremendous amount of joy into somebody's life. You know, a woman may receive it from her lover. A guy may get a fine wristwatch that he likes, or a band for a wristwatch, or a bracelet that you have made. His lover or his girlfriend may give it to him, and he takes pleasure out of it. Someone who wears it feels good for the evening. I mean, you're satisfying a desire that somebody has. I mean, you just don't have to go out and bind the wounds of injured soldiers to do service. There are many ways to do service.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Okay.
Enhancing the quality of people's lives.
Hi.
Hi. I'm Misa, and thank you for being here and for coming all the way from New York and everything. And I had a couple of things. One was that, let's see, I was let go from my a corporate job several years ago, and I had saved a 401k, and I've begun to spend it down, you know, and it's in I rolled it over into a CD, and you know, I was so vague that when the first term came up, you know, it was right, the first time it went in was during that crash, you know, when everything went down to like 0.1% or something interest. And then I swore that I'd get it out when it rolled over, and then I missed the date. I mean, I just didn't even open my mail, okay, so I missed it. So it's still in, and now it started at, and it wasn't very big. It was at 12,000 when it started, and now it's down to 5. I've spent it down to 5. And I've been spending it on doctor's bills. And the good part about, because I'm a longtime member of DA, but I'm new to UA. And the good thing I did was I paid the interest as going forward. So when I took the money out, I paid all the penalties as I took it out. So that when I did my tax return this year, I actually got a refund because I had paid all the taxes, and And
And the question?
oh, sorry. Yeah. The question is, should I take that money and do what you said about the index and that $5,000? I've been.
But you have a $5,000 operating fund or total money to your
total
life?
money to my name. Yeah.
Oh, good grief. No.
Okay.
You don't want to be investing that.
No.
Any place. I
No.
mean, you need that immediately at hand for cash.
Yeah.
And, unfortunately, it will go away.
Yeah.
There's only one difference between DA/UA and Alcoholics Anonymous. Well, let's start with just DA with this first. I can't get drunk by standing still. That's never going to happen to me. But in DA terms, I can go into debt by standing still. I have to earn. I have to generate. But other than that, it's the only difference. AA is the template for DA. One day at a time, I need not to, no matter what, in any form, in any amount, in any way, for any reason, one day at a time, I need not to incur any new debt. And in UA terms, I need to do that same thing to start a recovery in UA. That's the first foundation. I need not to debt. But since, by standing still, I'll eventually end up in debt, I'm forced to earn. It's a big difference between DAUA and AA, but it's the only real difference, too. Can't get drunk by standing still, but I can go into debt. So somehow I have to earn. And, I'll tell you, in the early stages for me, too, I took on almost any kind of work I could get. And I took on work that paid me less than I needed, but allowed me to avoid debting. And I had to change that. I had to eventually get work that paid me what I needed. But look, I was writing, I'm a guy who has published 40 books, maybe a bit more, I don't know. My work has been selected by the Book of the Month Club, the Literary Guild, the One Spirit Book Club, translated into a dozen foreign languages. I've sold film options, yada, it goes on and on. And what I was doing at one point in my recovery from debting and under-earning was I was reading manuscripts for a literary agent I knew and writing him reports on whether he should take this manuscript on or not to sell it for $35 a manuscript. I was writing short stories for $20 a short story. And I was doing that because I needed to get money in, not to debt. So it's hard sometimes. It's really hard. This is scary stuff, recovery, in the beginning particularly. And as I told you along the way, periods can happen when it can get scary and hard again too. But if I don't debt one day at a time, my life won't get any worse. If I don't debt and I work the 12 steps, my life will almost certainly get better, often considerably better, and sometimes spectacularly so. But it all comes down to me, the one thing I have to do. They don't give me any choice. I have to earn. And earn enough in the beginning to avoid debt, and then earn enough to be able to reasonably meet my expenses. And when it is that scary and that hard, and we're that demoralized, that's truly when we need the company of each other and the support of pressure relief groups and action groups and sponsors. It can be very difficult, very painful, very frightening, but it's doable. It's doable by anybody, which means I can do it, and it means you can do it. And the rewards for moving deeper into recovery are just extraordinary.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, you talked about marketing, or how, as an under-earner, it's very difficult for you to market yourself and sell yourself.
Could you speak a little minute? Oh, raise the mic up for yourself. Yeah.
Ooh, I don't know about that.
Sorry.
About how it's there we go. About how it's difficult for you to sell yourself, and I have that same problem. I'm basically doing what you did when you changed your name every few years. I just tried to change careers drastically, and it's 3 years of rejection, and I've been avoiding my rejection my whole life. So, how do you deal with the rejection and all that?
Painfully. Look, I just gave you a little litany of some of my literary background. Yeah. I'd love to be writing novels again, but the world doesn't permit that to me at the moment. But what I did start doing recently, I said, well, screw this then. I don't have the time or the energy or the money to undertake a novel, speculatively spend a year on my own and face publishing with it. But anyway, I said I'm going to write some short stories. I haven't written short stories in years, so I started writing some short stories again for the sheer pleasure of it. And I sent, there's no market left for short stories either, but so except the quarterly reviews in places that'll pay you $15 or something. So I sent them out to the literary reviews and the quarterly reviews. There are only a couple of new ones. And now keep in mind the background I told you that I have literarily. The first rejection that came back depressed the hell out of me. I thought, I should have gone to dental school. I mean, maybe once I could write, but I'm all burned out now and I can't do it anymore. It's over for me now. I mean, it was a good, this is in spite of my entire background, my entire body of work behind me. I mean, rejection is never fun. Fortunately, I didn't spend 24 hours in that state and mull it all over and go back and reread all my work to find out where the flaws were in them and the defects. And Jesus, the publisher must have bought that because they had a hole in their schedule because the book certainly shouldn't have been published. And, all this sort of thing. Rejection, it's always better to be praised and liked, feels better. Rejection never feels terrific, but rejection's going to happen, And so I simply have to say, okay. I accept it, but also, years of meditation, the hearing of other people who've suffered rejections and how they overcame them and how they go forward in the face of it. I'm not going to tell the whole story about Napoleon's cousin was considered one of his finest generals and bravest. Cut a long story short. This guy was sitting around the campfire one night, the night before a battle, and 2 or 3 other generals were there, and they were discussing courage and bravery. And one guy says, well, I'm afraid. He said, I'm always afraid before a battle. He said, but once the trumpets sound, my metabolism changes. I get up for it to hear the roar of my troops, and, the fear leaves me. And another one says, well, I'm afraid, but usually by the time dawn breaks, I see the sunlight and that fear goes away. And they go around the circle and they get to Napoleon's cousin, who's considered the bravest man in the entire army. And he says, I'm afraid. He said, I'm always afraid. And he said, fear never leaves me. And they said, you considered first over the ramparts. You have taken more enemy flags down than anyone else in the entire army. You're afraid? He said, yes, I'm always afraid, but I go forward anyway. And so, I'm going to have some rejections. And sometimes a lot of them, but I go forward anyway. And a lot of years of step work, a lot of years of meditation, the company and fellowship of other underearners, other debtors, and in my case, other alcoholics too. This cushions me and teaches me a new way of doing things. So that's how I do it.
Hi.
Hi.
This kind of terrifies me being up here, so I'm doing it anyways. So I thank you so much for writing that book. Because of that book and because of UA, I went from making $300 to making $10,000 a month. But to show that I'm really, an under-earner, I quit my job. So so I have the same type of job that I start on Monday. And I want to know, when you get there, and I'm an under-earner making $10,000 a month in my industry, just so you know. So there's great, possibilities. But I want to get there again, and how do I not do that again? How do I not sabotage myself when I'm at that point of, where I'm succeeding?
First, I would tell a sponsee, I would say, you can't quit your job until I give you permission. So I would enlist, if I were you, I'd enlist a sponsor, right away that I would check in with. I would identify for myself the propensity to undermine myself as part of my own under-earning. I would look upon it as a character defect in myself, and I would devote a fair amount of what I consider my recovery time in UA to working on that particular aspect of myself. It's a process. There's no quick affirmation, or there's no page I can refer you to in the big book that you could look at paragraph 3 and suddenly, fine, hey, I don't have to undermine myself anymore. Self-sabotage and undermining of oneself is also a characteristic of under-earners. Sometimes, if things get too good, we're not happy. You know, we miss the stress, we miss the distress, we miss the anxiety, we miss the fear. You know, for some of us, that can be a form of drug too. Me, I would consider it a flaw in my character. That's not a judgmental use of the word. It's just something that doesn't work right within me. I mean, if I say my car needs new brakes, I'm not condemning my car, calling the brakes bad. I'm just saying, hey, without those brakes being fixed, the car's dangerous. Doesn't work as well.
I think we got a great talk going on here. Thanks for watching the channel. Taper Dave here. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom?
So without me being able to fix certain things in myself or dampen them down or have them removed, I don't work as well. And so that's one that gives you a problem. And that's how I would address it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Hi.
Hi.
I think I've had being a writer. My name's Joe. I'm an under-earner.
Joe.
And I think I've had the notion to be a writer from very young, and I've kind of noodled around with it for a long time, and I haven't really taken decisive steps on it, and mostly because of my debting issues, I think. And I've been taking from a teacher off and on for the last couple of years. I mostly write prose right now. I got a couple of screenplay ideas I'm struggling to flesh out into completed works. I'd like to earn, Can you, suggest any books or, what I need to do to focus on getting paid?
You mean for writing?
Yeah.
That's tough. The first thing I need to do, as I just said when I went back to some short stories, I have a stable platform from which to do that. There's enough money. I have enough. I'm not worried for any immediate future. So I'm comfortable in taking some time each morning to spend on short stories. I know that those short stories aren't going to earn any money. The paying markets are dead for short stories, except for the New Yorker, the Atlantic, Vanity Fair occasionally. And it's like winning the lottery. And the pulps, still pay 5 cents a word. Some book publishers still pay money. I don't want to get too specific about this, but any Barnes & Noble superstore has a section on writing and on marketing. There's the literary marketplace, there's the Writer's Digest listing of markets, there's the National Writers Union. Anyone can join that, and they have listings of what services are paid at what amounts. You use the literary marketplace and the Writer's Digest market to find out where the publishers are for whom your work might be suitable, if it's book-length stuff. Magazine nonfiction articles, particularly in the women's market, one can still make a living at that, but it's highly specialized. Subscribe to Writer's Digest. Subscribe to Poets and Writers, which is a journal also. And peruse the literary sections of your Barnes & Noble superstore, join the National Writers Union, and you'll be able to get information on this.
Okay.
They'll give you your best shot at it.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Hi.
Hi.
Have you ever had a fear of success along with a fear of failure?
Inasmuch as I'm an under-earner, yes. It's one of the reasons that I changed names, wrote under different names. I would tell you off the top of my head, no, I have no fear of success. But certainly that I have acted and behaved as an under-earner and compulsively, something's in there. I wouldn't normally think of myself as having a fear of success, and these days probably I don't. I may have some reticence about success, but I don't think I have any fear of it. But, you know, it required, it's only taken me, you know, 28 years of sobriety, 27 years of solvency, and 20 years of working on my under-earning, and 10 years of sitting on a black cushion in formal meditation. And it's only taken me that much to get to this point. So.
Okay, because I think I have, in some areas, both a fear of failure and a fear of success. So how do you suggest pushing through those?
Do you have a sponsor?
No.
Okay, that's number one. Have you ever worked through the 12 steps?
Yes.
Good. And with a sponsor?
Pardon?
And with a sponsor?
With Prosperity Express in October.
Was that a group? Or
that was here. We did a whole weekend. Dion.
Oh, it was a one day?
Dion did
okay.
it.
Any way of working the steps is better than no way of working the steps. I don't think there's any wrong way to work the steps. But there are some ways that are more effective than others. I've made 3 complete trips through the steps, 3 complete trips sequentially, and the last one took me 2 years. The third one took me 2 years to complete that trip through the steps. My own uses are meditation and step work primarily. And the close association, again, with people who are unconditionally committed to recovery. And I look about and I listen to people and I think, you know, who has something in his life or her life that I would like in mine? And if it's this reticence to step forward, Andrew talks about the cave, and, you know, we always want to retreat back into the cave, or that many of us do. I want to listen to people and ask people questions who've come out of that damn cave and don't go back into it. You know, how did you do that? I always inquire of the people who are able to do something that I can't or that I would like to do. How do you do it? I think I mentioned this, I forget which night I meant, maybe it was the first night. I have a friend, Larry, Lawrence B., but he's a Grandmaster Award winner in a genre. He's a writer, a novelist, but I often listen to Larry because Larry does not have this particular set. He's got another condition, but he doesn't have this one. And Larry said at one point to me, he said, always ask for enough money that if they say yes, you don't resent doing the work. And so I asked Larry, and I have another friend, Bob Silverberg, who lives out here, Robert Silverberg. He's not in any program, so I can mention his name. And he's a grandmaster science fiction writer. And Bob is very good with money. And I have asked Bob questions on how to handle certain things. So I go to the people who know how to do things and can do them. And when I have a fear or reluctance like this, you know, that's how I would deal with it. In addition to step works and sponsor work and pressure relief groups, prayer, meditation, that, and associating with people who can do it already and asking them how they do it.
Okay, thank you. Very good.
Thank you.
I have more questions, but I don't want to stop. I mean, there's just nobody else in line, so. Okay, but I have 2 more questions when there's nobody else who hasn't.
Okay, I myself am probably going to be able to last about 5 more minutes because Mike, I think, is doing a presentation at 1:15, and I'd like to grab a couple of cherries and then be able to sit and listen to Mike too. So if you guys will I'll give you about 5 more minutes if that's okay. Hi.
Hi, Jerry. I'm Dave. Thanks for being here again. You may have addressed this, and I just may have not been in here. But if you could just mention briefly in one of your books, and I've been asked this before, and you may have touched on it, but it's when you say, do not take work that pays you less than you need, and follows that up with do not say no to money. Sometimes they conflict, so I'm wondering if what you really meant and do not take work that pays you less than you need until you can get to that point of, in other words,
that would be a fair enough modification. What you people have taught me this weekend is if I ever get to do a revision of that book, I've got to be a hell of a lot more careful and spell out more clearly exactly what I mean by that. I thought I had, but it's obvious that I didn't, you know. If 19 out of 20 people express some confusion or have a question about it, I have failed to communicate it clearly. Let me go through it one more time quickly. The first priority, and the three do nots. The first one is do not incur new debt,
right.
Period. So the second one is don't take work that pays you less than you need. However, if it's a choice, you know, I just talked about having written reports for an agent for $35 and a couple of $20 short stories and everything. I did that to avoid debting. It certainly wasn't money that paid me what I needed.
Right.
But I will do anything to avoid debting. That's the first thing. So I can take work that doesn't pay me what I need, as long as it pays me what I need in order not to debt for this moment. But then once I've got that manageable, for the moment at least, then I need to be looking for work that really will meet my needs on an ongoing basis. Because over an extended period of time, if I'm taking work that pays me less than I need, debt will be inevitable.
Right.
Short term, it can keep me out of debt. Long term, debt will be inevitable.
Yeah. Okay.
So once the first two are secure, then don't say no to money.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kevin, Underearner.
Hi, Kevin.
New in the program. My higher power is very similar to what you expressed your higher power is, your concept of the higher power. So I'm wondering maybe if you could speak briefly on how you were able to maintain that through the steps, because sometimes I find that kind of concept of a higher power is different from what's put out there, even though the book says you can be what you want.
Well, the book means it. It can be anything you want. Some people are quite convinced of what a higher power is, and they think they've got, you know, the right idea of it, and who knows. And that, what I postulated was not necessarily my current idea of it. I go back to it frequently because I don't know what else to do. But I had no trouble working all 12 steps with that concept of a higher power. There are only two places where it talks about God or higher powers. The third step made a decision to turn our lives and our will over to the care of God as we understood God. So, phrasing with my understanding of that, made a decision to turn my life and my will over to the care of what was best in me and best in other people. I could do that. And in fact, made sense for me to do that. That really made sense out of that step. I could do that. Then we jump ahead to the 11th step, because that's the only other place that it's really mentioned in the steps. And it says, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God, praying only for knowledge of God's will for us and the power to carry that out. So, sought through prayer and meditation to improve my conscious contact with what was best in me and best in other people, and only for a knowledge of that will and the power to carry that out. I could work the steps with that. I don't see a conflict.
You didn't get caught up in the semantics of it or whatever thing.
I don't need to be caught up in other people's idea of a higher power. Right. I don't need to object to it, and I don't need to subscribe to it. You know, if that's the higher power that works for them, that's okay with me.
Great. The other thing is, just briefly, as I'm getting more into the program and I'm getting awareness about under-earning and this whole thing, I'm finding I'm getting so much anger as I look back and I see just how much money I've walked away from. And I work in entertainment and on the production and the performance side, and whenever things are going well, it's just always cut left. So, but I'm finding that to be a block to my work in the program, because it's like, in a way, I don't want to know anymore, because it all just gets really overwhelming, and it's just like, oh, fuck, you know. So is there any suggestion to overcome that thing?
Outlast it is the primary suggestion, because anytime anyone gets sober or starts to have healthy relationships or starts to change his or her food into a healthy way, in those early stages, the growing recognition of how I have succumbed to this addiction and how, whatever the addiction is, and how much it has damaged my life and crippled me and injured me in many ways, that's depressing. it's depressing for anyone who starts to wake up and realize what he or she has done. And that's perfectly natural and probably unavoidable, totally. However, it doesn't profit me anything. It's not going to help you to be particularly angry at yourself. It's not going to help you. And what you could do, you could really formalize it and structure it and just take 5 minutes a day in which you despise, loathe, revile, and detest yourself. Set an
Only
alarm
5? No.
and get in there and do it.
Right.
And then when the alarm goes off, okay, you've expunged that, you've fulfilled all your moral and ethical obligation to be pissed at yourself for what you've done, and then go on with the rest of your day. That's one way.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I think one quick question, and then since there is no other, and then I'm going to grab a little cherry or two.
Okay, I don't know how quick it is. I just wanted to ask you, I don't understand with the way you break everything down so logically, why you're using that little bit of time in the morning to write short stories instead of your novel. Why? The reason we're here is to follow our dreams. So why?
The undertaking of a novel, I've written a lot of novels,
right,
is a massive undertaking. And it generally, although a novel can be written 1 hour at a time, it can indeed, it requires an outlay of focus, energy, and at this point in my life, such a delayed time schedule that it won't provide me, among other things, with the satisfaction of a completed work of fiction that I want now.
Gotcha.
I want to be re-engaged with the writing of fiction. And although I am a much more natural novelist than I am a short story writer, I've written a fair number of short stories over the years, and I can write short stories, and I've actually approached them with a different view, and the satisfaction of completing a work of fiction has been tremendous, and just what I wanted.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, so if you'll excuse me. Thank you.
Okay, guys.
Thanks very much.
We're going to take a short minute break, but before that, I have a pitch that I need to give you guys, and that has to do with the taping. Obviously, everything was been taped, and we're offering the tapes for sale out here, and they'll be available 5 minutes after the workshop's over. It'll be $100 for the whole set of tapes, and I think it's going to be like 22 CDs. Plus also the CD from last year, which is the Prosperity Express of last year. I don't think most of you were here for that. He's going to be selling that for an additional $25. So in other words, for $125, you can get Prosperity Expresses from the last 2 years. And last year was a completely different content than what we did this year. So it would really be valuable for you to also get the last year's CD set if you were in a position to purchase them. And they will be available 5 minutes after the end of the last workshop. And you can put your orders in outside.
Thank you all again. I really appreciate your being here and having me here. It's been a blessing and a grace for me, and I'm very happy that I was here. So thank you. Yeah, I know.
How you doing?
I've been trying to get out of here for some time.
How you doing? That's great, man.
You're the man. All right, listen, we're going to shift to another corner and let Mike get set up here.
I'm ready, man.
I'm ready. I wanted to grab a bite to eat and then listen to you. I really wanted to listen to you.
Okay, guys, can you all grab a seat? The next workshop's starting. We have to do this on time or else we're going to run out of time. And that means you guys are going to miss out on stuff. So can you guys all grab a chair?
Jerry left his dollar up here. So this is the first dollar that Jerry's given.
Take care and have a good day if you want to. Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, oop, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right. But I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.